Chapter 6 Return to Death Tokyo. G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is Chapter 6 of my What If Light Became a Nobody story. If you're new to this series, click the link in the description below to be taken to the playlist. Now let's begin the next chapter. The day after his reconnaissance mission to Agrabah, Tilks is given another solo mission. It seems his last mission exceeded expectations, as this time, he's being sent to a world that the organization has only sent members to a couple of times. Thankfully, it's a world that Tilks isn't completely unfamiliar with, as it's the world he'd been taken to by Xigbar to learn how to do reconnaissance. The world in question has since been given the name Death Tokyo by Xemnas. Tilks' mission is to locate a boss heartless that Zoldan had encountered when he was there. His mission is not to engage with it, just locate it so they can send Roxas or Shion to harvest the hearts that have created it. Knowing just how aggressive Heartless and especially Boss Heartless can be, he asks what he should do if it attacks him. Looking annoyed, Sykes tells him that if it attacks him, he should just run away. But Tilks persists, asking about the possibility that the boss could have him in a situation where escape isn't possible. After all, they don't know what type of boss it is. It could have abilities that prevent its prey from getting away. Looking clearly irritated, Sykes concedes, telling Tilks that if he's in a situation where escape isn't possible, he has permission to fight and defeat the boss. However, he will then need to remain in that world until the Heartless reforms and is relocated. With his bases now covered, Tilks steps through the portal without further complaint. The moment he steps through to Death Tokyo, the cold air of winter hits him like a truck, causing him to shiver. Pulling up his hood, he pulls the cords to close it as much as he can without obscuring his vision. With that done, he looks around and sees that he's standing in the middle of an alleyway. Small pieces of snow dot the path, up against the walls of the buildings on either side of him as sunlight peeks through the gaps above. That clearly explains why it's so cold. Turning to the closest opening, he walks out and into the open, wincing as the sunlight reflects off the blanket of snow covering the path and into his eyes. Looking around, he can see that he's in a main street. There are people everywhere, all bustling about, talking, and not paying attention to anything outside of their own little worlds. The clothing that they wear is closest to his own cloak, but still not quite. It's like someone had taken the organization's coat and stripped down all of the flashy stuff. Or if someone had taken the clothes of this world and added some bells and whistles because they thought it looked cool. He might not stand out quite as much as he did in Agrabah, but it's still more than he would like. He turns and begins to make his way down the street, looking for any signs of Heartless. It's slow going since there are so many people that he has to move around. The noise is even louder than it was in Agrabah, now with the added bonus of car horns blaring. The lights of the large TVs attached to some of the larger buildings keep flashing, and there's so many people and so much noise, and he ducks into another alleyway, escaping the main street. It was too much all at once. He hadn't thought much of HQ when he first arrived, but he'd grown accustomed to the quiet and slow pace of the place. This world was just too much all at once. He just needed a breather, then he'd get right back out there. Yick, 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 yick. Tilks' head snaps up at the unnerving and strangely familiar laugh. Looking to where it's coming from, he spots one of the strangest creatures he's ever seen. And that's including Chaos. The figure is almost humanoid, with 2 legs, 2 arms, a torso, and a head. But it's twice the size of a normal human, and its arms and legs are slightly elongated. Its body is mostly black, with what looks like feathers sprouting from its shoulders. Its head almost looks like it's been stapled on, and its eyes are blood red. It almost looks like a Heartless, but a lot more unsettling. The strangest thing is that it's slightly see-through, like a ghost. It's looking down at him with amusement, still laughing to itself. Tilks frowns. What does it think is so funny? He asks the creature just that, and its expression morphs into one of surprise and intrigue. It points at itself with a single long finger and asks if he can really see it. Tilks tells it that he kind of can, but it's kind of faded, asking if it's some kind of ghost. The creature grins, showing off its shark-like teeth with a something like that. It then floats down on large black feathered wings and tells Tilks that its name is Ryuk. Tilks frowns and asks if it's got any preferred pronouns, since he can't really tell. Chuckling that unnerving laugh, Ryuk tells him that he's a he. With his question answered, Tilks introduces himself and is again confused when this causes Ryuk to laugh again. With introductions done, Tilks asks why he was watching him, and Ryuk simply says that he thinks he's interesting. Before Tilks can question what he finds so interesting, Ryuk asks why he's in this world. Tilks tells him that he's looking for something but doesn't elaborate. He looks to the main street, internally debating if facing that would be worth getting away from Ryuk. Having the ability to fly would be really useful right now. An idea suddenly hits him and he turns back to Ryuk. Remembering his reaction to Tilks seeing him, he asks if somebody's can't, making Ryuk chuckle again and confirm. Getting to his feet, he asks Ryuk if he can ask him to do something for him. Ryuk tilts his head, looking intrigued, before asking what Tilks would give him if he did. Tilks asks what Ryuk would want. Ryuk tells him that he wants apples, surprising Tilks with such a simple payment. Tilks tells him that he's looking for a boss heartless, but he doesn't even know where to start looking. So, here's the deal. Tilks will give Ryuk apples proportional to how much he helps him. A hint on where to start looking himself earns Ryuk 1 apple. Telling him multiple areas that will give him clues on finding what he needs will earn him 2 for every 3 locations. Personally aiding him in gathering information, either by leading him to these locations or by helping him find clues in said location, will earn him 3 apples each. And acting as lookout to keep somebody from seeing him and from stumbling upon the Heartless will earn him 10. Ryuk is surprised at the jump in apples for that last one, to which Tilks explains that the final task requires a lot more work on Ryuk's part than the others, and is a lot more important. After all, it's dangerous for somebody to get close to Heartless. He can handle himself, but others will be in danger. For some reason, this makes Ryuk start cackling like a hyena. Tilks simply stands there, waiting for the weirdly amused ghost monster thing to get it all out of his system. When he finally does, he tells Tilks that it will be 13 apples this time in that case, as he knows exactly where the boss Heartless is and he can easily scare off any humans that might get too close. With that, he spreads his wings once again and takes off, leaving Tilks to scramble after him on foot. The ghost monster seems to be taking delight in Tilks' struggle to keep up, always staying just far enough ahead to make him scramble, but never getting too far that he loses track of him. At least while his focus is on Ryuk, the previously overwhelming noise and sights of the city seem far away. After a while, the crowd thins out and Tilks is better able to keep up, and no longer has to struggle to weave between people. Eventually, Ryuk leads him to what looks like a large park. It's pretty normal, except for the fact that there's no one around. Though maybe it's not that strange. He'd much rather be inside himself. He comes to a stop next to Ryuk as he stands at the top of a short set of steps, legs sore and panting a little from running so much. Before he can comment on the chase Ryuk had just led him on, the larger creature makes a comment about it seeming that someone else found the Heartless before him. Confused, Tilks looks to where Ryuk is looking and gasps, his chest squeezing painfully as he sees a massive Heartless looming over a girl about his age. Without a second thought, he rushes in, ignoring his own fatigue as he summons his summoning window. With his trusted weapon at his side, he puts on a final burst of speed, just managing to get himself between the Heartless and the girl with his window to act as a shield. The Heartless's leg slams against the window with a sharp tip, making Tilks very glad that the pure magic weapon is basically impenetrable. Otherwise, he'd probably be a shish kebab. Now that he's closer, he can see that the Heartless kind of looks like a giant spider crossed with a human woman. A Juragumo, the back of his mind supplies. The sight of it makes him shudder, whether it's because of the fact that it's a giant spider with the torso of a human woman attached to the top, or some combination of the two, he doesn't know. He really doesn't want to have to fight that thing, but with the somebody behind him, he can't back down. With a flick of his wrist, he sends his window up, knocking the Jorogumo's razor-sharp leg up with it and causing whatever, to stumble. Taking advantage of its loss of balance, he runs forward, getting under it where he summons a red nocturne to launch fireballs at point-blank range. If he knows one thing about spiders, it's that they don't take well to fire. He's right as the Jorogumo screeches in pain while trying to attack him with its legs. However, Tilks rolls out from under it, quickly getting some distance between him and the Heartless. Screeching in anger, it charges at him and Tilks summons Kronos, flipping it once to slow the boss before moving out of the way and flipping it again to speed it up. The sudden shift in speed causes it to crash into a tree. He shifts his weight as it gets up, preparing for it to charge him again. However, instead of charging at him, it aims at the girl who is still frozen on the ground in shock. Tilks rushes in and puts himself between the girl and the Jorogumo again. But this time, the Heartless doesn't go for a stab, but a swipe. Catching Tilks in the side, it knocks him off his feet and sends him flying. He's dully aware of screaming as he slams against the ground with a thud and a faint crack. God, he hopes he hasn't broken anything. He doesn't have any summons that can heal. He should fix that as his first opportunity. He grits his teeth against the pain as he forces himself onto his hands and knees. He tries to open his eyes and finds one is obscured by blood. His body aches and he can feel the sting of the ice-cold wind against the cut on his forehead, where the blood is surely coming from. But he can't dwell on it for long, as he can see the Jorogumo once again advancing on the girl. Forcing himself to his feet, he clutches his side in pain as he summons his window once again and calls forth another red nocturne. The little summon bombards the boss with fire, drawing its attention. He glares at it. "Leave her alone! I'm your opponent!" The Jorogumo shrieks again and charges. Tilks knows that he's in no shape to dodge this time. His best bet is to hit it hard enough to take it out before it can cause him any more damage. Taking a deep breath, he focuses on his newest summon, hoping that it'll be enough. In a flash, a faded replica of Chaos jumps out of his window. Before Tilks can blink, the copy has made a little cloud under him to sit on and pulled him up into the sky above the Jorogumo. While Tilks is still recovering from being startled at the sudden movement, the double nudges him with a mischievous grin before pulling out a bag, opening it, and turning it upside down over the Jorogumo. Tilks watches in stunned fascination as an array of different objects drop out of the bag to land on the Jorogumo before disappearing, including a kitchen sink. Once the last item lands on the Heartless, Chaos leads the cloud back to the ground, taking Tilks with it. Once they arrive on the ground, the final item disappears along with Chaos. Tilks turns to the boss as it lets out another screech, but this time it doesn't get up. It curls in on itself before bursting into black smoke and releasing a heart-shaped crystal, which shoots off to parts unknown. Tilks sighs upon seeing that. Now he's going to have to stay in this world until the Jorogumo or a Heartless of equal strength spawns. This is seriously not his day. Turning around, he sees that the girl is still there and is looking at him with big eyes. There's an emotion in them that he can't quite place. It almost looks like fear, and it's directed at him, but he's not getting the sense that it's him she's afraid of. Moving slowly with his injuries, he walks up to her, every step causing a spike of pain in his side. He's definitely going to have a monster of a bruise. Once he's standing in front of her, he asks if she's okay. The question seems to bring her out of her state of shock, causing her mouth to fall open as she looks at him with incredulous shock. "Am I okay? You're the one that's hurt!" Tilks tries to shrug but winces. He tries to tell her that it's not that bad, but ends up phrasing it as more of a question, realizing that the blood on his face, the way he's holding his side, and his wince are not helping his case. She narrows her eyes at him as she gets to her feet. Carefully, she reaches out and takes his free hand before she spins on her heel and begins to pull him along as gently as she possibly can, without giving him a chance to pull away. Startled, Tilks asks her where she's taking him. She scoffs, telling him that she's taking him to her place. She's not about to let the person that saved her go without treatment for his wounds. Tilks looks around frantically. This is breaking so many rules. He's not supposed to interact with somebodies like this. If Sykes or one of the others in the organization find out about this, he's going to be in so much trouble. He needs to get out of this. He tells the girl that he can't just go over to her place just like that. They don't even know each other. Hasn't she ever heard of stranger danger? The girl huffs and, despite not being able to see her face, he gets the distinct impression she's rolling her eyes at him. She tells him that it wouldn't make any sense for him to do anything to her after finding a monster to save her. Besides, he's not in any condition to do anything anyway. Tilk still insists until the girl interrupts him, asking what his name is. Startled by the interruption, he answers. The girl turns around to look at him. Her eyes are alight with a stubborn fire and her smile is mischievous. Nice to meet you, Tilks. I'm Sayu. Now we're not strangers. It's not long before Tilks is sitting on the couch of a 2-story family home, his forehead cleaned and bandaged up, his sore arm in a sling, and his various cuts covered in band-aids. Seriously, how did he end up in this situation? His attention is brought back to Sayu as she gets back from putting the first aid kit away and pops down next to him. She turns to him with a frown, telling him that he really should go to a hospital. Tilks shakes his head, as he did the last 5 times she said that. Nobodies aren't supposed to exist, so he doesn't want to imagine what abnormalities the doctors would find out about his body. He doesn't fancy the idea of becoming a lab rat, even if only temporarily. Sayu sighs before asking if there's at least someone that he'd like her to call to come pick him up. Tilks blinks as his mind instantly thinks of Roxas and Shion. He'd really like them to be here right now. They'd be able to cheer Tilks up with lighthearted jokes, and then they'd all go for ice cream and everything would be better. But he doesn't think that Sayu would be able to contact them. Not unless her phone service provided interdimensional calling. And even then, I don't think HQ even has phones. Sayu gives him a weird look, asking him why he said HQ. Doesn't he mean home? Tilks shakes his head. HQ may be where he lives, but he'd hardly call it a home. Still frowning, Sayu asks if he needs a lift, suggesting that they wait for her dad to get home so he can take him. Tilks shakes his head again, telling her that he doubts her dad would be able to take him all the way there. Besides, he can't go back yet anyway. Startled by this, she asks why, so Tilks explains to her that he was sent on a mission to locate the heartless that attacked her. He was meant to just find it, not fight it, and now that he's defeated it, he needs to stay here until it respawns and he can relocate it. Sayu's eyes widen with that odd emotion that he'd seen earlier, asking if he has anywhere to stay. Tilks shrugs with his good arm, telling her that he'll figure something out. He's got money, so there's bound to be a hotel or something somewhere where he can rent a night or two. Sayu asks if he doesn't think that people will question a young teenager renting a room all on his own, and he shrugs again. He's a nobody, so he doubts that anyone would even notice. Sayu frowns before she gets up off the couch. Asking him to wait where he is, she walks out of the living room and into the hall. Tilks tilts his head, wondering why the girl is acting so weird. Hey, Dad, do we have a long-lost cousin you forgot to tell us about? And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave the story for now. Join me next time as Tilks' extended stay in Death Tokyo begins. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.